Hi, everybody, and welcome to TNM Coaching Unplugged and Zora to the Rich Interconnected podcast. So joyful and happy to have you with us once again, and so grateful to see our community expanding and growing. Good reviews and good comments on the previous podcast. I'm so happy that some of you are sharing our podcast, and we receive wonderful feedback that those podcasts are really helping you live better life, lead better business, be the best possible version of yourself. As we always said, this podcast is all about elevating your mind, elevating your heart and your soul to the next level and beyond, where you can learn more about yourself. And today we're going to explore a very interesting topic. We're going to explore a critical role of commitment in leadership, in personal growth, in our development, because commitment is something that is the core of our life's journey. If you're a leader and you're listening to this, it's the core of your leadership journey. And commitment usually drives results, creates resilience, creates foundation of trust within yourself, within your teams. There is so much to be said about commitment. We're going to explore commitment as a topic with our wonderful guest, Richard Stokes, who is a seasoned leadership coach and founder of Mojo Leadership. He has years of experience working with the leaders across the various industries and the world. He's also specializing in connecting leaders and people to their authentic self, helping them to unlock their true potential, and also helping them to have this mojo in leadership, something intangible, something really nice and sweet. Richard also has his own podcast, which is absolutely wonderful. We're going to reference his podcast in the description of our podcast as well. And also what I would love to mention about Richard, in his coaching, he also focuses how to harness the energy of emotional intelligence, well-being, empowerment, to lasting impacts for the personal and professional development. You will feel his passion. I'm super grateful to have Richard with us today. So welcome, Richard.
Oh, Zoran, what an introduction. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be with you today.
And in preparation to this, we kind of talked about, commitment as a very important topic. And I love the simplicity of it, because sometimes in some of the podcasts, we go over to very complex topic and dialogue and discussions, but commitment is one of these things that is super important. It's something that you're passionate about. So let's start with that. So why do you feel this conversation about commitment really inspires and invigorates your passion? What is the importance of this topic for all of us?
Yeah, I like simple. I like straightforward. And with commitment, I think that it is that on the surface, but it's multi-layered. And the way I look at it, there are lots of different lenses that we can see the world through commitment. You've mentioned some of them there in terms of how we lead, how we show up as leaders, how our own personal development and growth goes on. I do a lot of work with men. You might call it men's work, and men's commitment to that is something I'm very interested in too. So I'm fascinated by the idea. So, you mentioned the podcast, the Mojo podcast. Actually, I spend the whole of the series that is just closing, the 6th series, talking to an amazing array of diverse and brilliant guests about that subject. Yet their mojo, yes, but through a lens of commitment. And I just got this richness of conversation, of insight, of wisdom that came from that. And I spoke to people in the arts and culture. I spoke to people in sports, people in business, adventurers, influencers, pioneers. And I really wanted to, like I said, get under the skin of what it meant to them. What does it mean to choose, I'm going to write this book, to choose, I'm going to get up on this stage, I'm going to make people laugh, right? That's commitment, getting up on the stage. I spoke to 2 people that have climbed Everest. I mean, literally Everest, amongst other mountains, and living life in what they call the death zone. What's behind that? And in more general terms, about making huge change in our life. And I think that's what made it very personal, maybe for me, because I've created an amount of change in my life over the last certainly sort of 7-8 years, not least moving out of the corporate world and moving into running my own business in coaching, moving from the UK and a culture and a country I grew up in and knew very well, over to where we both live, to Ibiza here in Spain. Also, my wife and I have been blessed to have 2 children in the last 4 years. So that in itself is a huge commitment. Maybe there's nothing greater. So there was lots that I was really fascinated by, and I continue to be drawn to this concept. I'm not going to sit here and tell listeners I have all the answers, but I think I've experienced some things personally, and I've had some great conversations with people as well. So
let's dive into this. My first question is like for people who are listening and who are not committing to something. So let's say you mentioned, I want to climb the mountain, I want to write a book, I want to commit to a relationship, I want to commit to losing weight, I want to commit to anything that I know I need to commit to. And people are wavering, they're not committing. So you talking with your experts, guests, and yourself, what is holding us back to make that first step in committing to something? Let's start with that.
Yeah. When I look at it and I think about commitment, I think, and there's some kind of blockage or barrier to that commitment. We often think, it's not the right commitment, or I question that commitment. We talk, obviously there's huge things like I'm going to scale the biggest mountain in the world. I'm going to write a book. Let's make it, more every day. I'm going to commit to that meditation practice. I'm going to commit to stretch my legs for 20 minutes a day because I just know that's good for me, but somehow I can't. And I think often we have a tendency to question the commitment, the thing I've chosen, as maybe it's not the right thing. I can't seem to integrate it. But what I've learned is behind the commitment, there's likely to be a fear. Right. There's likely to be a fear. So my first, I guess, port of call is don't necessarily question the commitment you're making, but question the fear that's behind it. Because the fear is giving us so much information. And obviously sometimes it's pushing us away, but what is in that fear? So when we start to question the fear, I think we can learn an awful lot more about ourselves. What is it that I'm resisting? What is it about this idea I have that I can't make it work? What is it in that fear? So if it is something, I'm going to write the book, is the fear no one's going to read the book? Okay, that'll be a pretty major fear behind it, a commitment of that type. So investigate that. What's the fear? And often, it's a truism, but the fear isn't in the way of you. The fear is the way. I think you really have to face up these fears. And when you do, and you make those breakthroughs, one, you're going to find yourself in a completely different place. And two, I've learned so much more about myself, my capability, and what I can do, and my potential. A lot of this amazing podcast is about realizing our own human potential. And we can do that. And, I've been in that seat. Believe me, when my wife and I talked about moving to Ibiza, I was absolutely crippled by fear, literally crippled. On the surface, what a great idea. Yeah, of course. A lovely place to go and live.
Do it.
Let's do it. And partly my answer was, yeah, let's do it. And then, what happened is the old overthinking, the old ego took over. So, but I've got this, big corporate job. How can I possibly leave that to go and do something else? I mean, what would my identity be? We've got this really nice flat in London. How can we exchange that for something in Ibiza that I'm not sure what that would be? So you can see the fears coming up. And I was absolutely crippled with it. And fortunately for me, a couple of things. I have a very determined and passionate partner, my wife, and she's patient as well. So she just allowed me to play those fears through. And we would talk about, without knowing this is what we're doing, we really got into what's really holding me back and where are my fears. I work with a coach. And guess what? That different level of conversation that we know about and many of our listeners will know about just allowed me to play out those fears, got them out of here, out of my head. When you start to vocalize them and that whole, well, maybe that won't be quite so bad. Maybe I'll find another way to make money. Maybe we'll find that lovely house in Ibiza. And perhaps all these other things that were behind our move might come to fruition, like starting a family. So you can see how really, for me, and I would encourage everyone to do this, is when you're backing away from a commitment, there'll be a fear. So really move towards that fear, because in there, I think will be your answer.
And I love that you're sharing that, because this fear, it's at the level of the source, right? And sometimes when people are being coached or being advised or being in conversation, the people want them to commit. It's just like, you're not committing. You have fear of commitment. I can hear that term as well. You are afraid of committing, but actually we're not exploring what is really holding us back in that commitment. And you're saying this is layers of fears and insecurities and so of uncertainty, because we all love to live in a predictable reality, so to say. So when we leap into something unknown, like in your case, all of those presented themselves. Lucky you that you had such a wonderful wife who is determined, patient, and listening well. She's a great coach, I'm sure.
Yeah, she's an amazing coach. She has no formal coach training, yet she's an incredible coach.
Yeah. Most of the people that I know like that are really, really incredible.
Yeah.
And just for curiosity, because I like sometimes for the audience to get a little bit deeper, if you don't mind answering. So was that leap in that new life, committing that new life, did you plan to have family, or family just happened as the outcome of that? Or were you already with children before you moved?
No, so children were had been in our desires, our wishes for a long time, and we struggled. We struggled for many years to start that family that we really, really wanted to have. So we went through, and some listeners will have had their own experience of this, many rounds of IVF in the UK, and we weren't getting anywhere. And in that, we had this thing, I look back on it now, we had this just incredible belief that it would happen, that we had this determination that, fortunately for us, it brought us closer together than pushing us apart. It can really challenge couples and partnerships. Yeah, absolutely. Because you are going through the darkest of times. So part of the move was, look, there's something here, i.e. the UK, and our life there that wasn't quite adding up for whatever reason, and whatever level you want to look at this from. These soul children were waiting to come to us, but they were like, we're not ready yet. So we moved to Ibiza. We continued with a IVF from a different clinic, and the rest is history. The beautiful moment of learning that that my wife was pregnant with her first son. We were literally, it's almost the anniversary of that moment. It was a couple of days ago, and we have, how your iPhone will throw up pictures from your past, and there it was. It must have been 5 years ago, because our son is 4, of me and my wife sitting with the stick with the result. This is early days, obviously, of any pregnancy, of that, and that moment, back to the commitment piece, and any kind of fears were very swiftly dissolved in that moment. So yeah, the whole our process of starting a family in itself was a massive commitment.
And also the reason why I asked that question, because I found out in my own life, and also when I coach people, that sometimes when you commit to certain bigger changes in your life and you desire a certain life quality or circumstances, starting the family, finding a new business, as a result of that commitment, something beautiful happens if you persevere and you step into your fears and you do whatever you need to do next. If you face them, then something wonderful happens as a result of it, isn't it?
This is it. I think this is the universe, and the universe is on our side, and it's just waiting. Tell me what you want, and we'll organize it for you. And we're very good at getting in our own way and not expressing that. But I think my wife and I were very clear about expressing what it is we wanted, and we made that commitment on all these different levels. And yes, we were, you might want to say, rewarded with that, and we stepped into it. Yeah.
If you believe in the hero's journey of our life, sometimes if you follow the hero's journey and you embark into that journey, one of the most important first steps is committing. But then later on, throughout the hero's journey, we get to the point of reward that I call the life will give you cookies. It will give you recognition. It will give you, well done you for working through those fears, exactly as you said beautifully, facing them, looking into them with the open eyes, engaging, transforming by using those, and then creating something completely different, and then something wonderful happens. So there's a lot to say. I mean, like when we commit, right, that we can also anticipate and expect that good things will come later on down the line as a result of our committing.
Yes, that's it. I think you're opening up possibilities. I see it very much as if we think about abundant versus scarcity mindset, I think when we are committing, we're giving ourselves this opportunity of more abundance, saying, the way I look at commitment, and I definitely got this from your podcast as well, was I'm actually choosing not to have any more choice. This is the beautiful paradox, I think, of commitment. I'm choosing not to have any more choice. We are in this, and we are stepping off of this road and onto this one. And in that comes there's just an energy that flows with that. And that's why I mean this kind of an abundance that exists there. And look, we can, it's not about, you make a commitment and you're sticking to that thing forever. I mean, I'm a real realist. Okay. Life will throw different things at us. So it's okay. I was committing there, and now I'm choosing to commit here. I think as long as we're making this really conscious, that's another thing when I work with clients, is really be really conscious about this, really communicate that commitment you're making, firstly to yourself. Okay, to get it out there. Again, working with a coach can be a great way of doing that, or a partner. And then to the people around you who are going to support that commitment. So for us, moving to Ibiza, starting a family, it's very much deep and important conversations with people like parents, really close friends, who we knew would be on our side. As you make that commitment, you'll need some support. Back to the hero's journey, there will be the mentor who will help you on the journey, the person you're going to find. There will be the dark night of the soul when things are not going perhaps the way that you anticipated. And you will, through that commitment, you will come out the other side. When you really trust, you mentioned the word trust right up front. I think it's so fundamental to commitment that you're really trusting yourself in that commitment you're making. And in that is where I sometimes see in leadership, issues around commitment start to come up, where there is a lack of trust. And you can look at the work of obviously Patrick Lencioni and 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, etc. But when that trust isn't there, you start to see it. Why isn't this team committed? Why is the leadership not truly committed to where we're going, to what we want to do? And there will be, and I think we sometimes think about this, or trust in the process or the thing or the product. It's often trust in self that's missing. I think in that. So, this is another lens, I suppose, we've opened up that we can look at commitment through. But it's really powerful. And just coming back to that idea of I'm choosing now, in whatever context, to have no more choice. This is what I'm going to do. I love that.
I'm choosing not to have any more choices. So, that phrase is so important for us all to bookmark, for the listeners and myself as well, because we are faced with so much choice nowadays. Our life digitalized, diversified. We have a lot, to choose from, and we consistently stimulated to make choices. And I love that kind of paradox that I'm choosing not to have any more choice. I'm committing, and this is my life trajectory. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So now let's dive into that, confidence, security, trusting yourself, in commitment, because that's the big one as well. In addition to what we talked so far, choosing that commitment, going through the layers of fear, understanding that deep within, behind resistance to commitment is something that you have to face, you have to look into. And then the second layer is looking into that, not trusting yourself enough, and not having maybe enough confidence in yourself, in your abilities. How do we work with that to get people to move through that passage, so to say, to be able to commit a bit more?
Yeah, so the trust with self, and I think that's the thing. And another, just to rewind slightly, but I think our traditional views of commitment it is to someone else or something. Classically, in a committed relationship, for example, and to really get to that commitment is commitment to yourself, and trust in yourself. I think is at the heart of that. That commitment. And where does that trust in self come from? I think some of it is really looking at, oftentimes we can get in our own way, and we kind of forget just what are the things we've done. If it is a confidence trust piece, what is it I've managed to do to get to here? And we become very and you spoke about, well, our world is very fast paced. It's very, very now. But having a little bit of a look back, all the things I've managed to do, the commitments I have made and followed through on, the trust I have therefore built with myself and the confidence that comes from it. So I always urge people to we spend a bit of time just looking back into that past, and sometimes developing you have these pots of really powerful experience, okay, that just will arm you for maybe what's coming next. And I get people, literally, again, people learn and remember in different ways. And sometimes write that memory down, put it in a place that you can access that. So when you're faced by that, it's a bit of a crisis of confidence or trust in yourself in front of another commitment. How have I done this before? And really, drawing that out. And yes, of course, a coach can help you with that, but any trusted friend can really help draw that out of you, I think. Yeah.
And I also love what you're sharing around committing to oneself, because you're absolutely right. When we think about commitment, it's always to something, somebody, to organization, to project, to team, to your wife, your husband, your friend, your parents. But it's all about committing to yourself, right? That's the most important first step, isn't it?
I think that's it. I think that's exactly the first thing. And when people are we're having some conversations around commitment and ability to do it. And obviously we've done that, looking back, it's like, let's try some new commitment. What is it that you want to commit to in the next 2 weeks? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then see how that feels. And often what we get is the experience of that commitment. And, it can be something as we were talking about our coffee before we started, Zoran. I have a commitment to, I have 1 coffee a day because I can't really cope with any more caffeine than that. And I really commit to, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make it in a certain way because I've learned how to use my stovetop coffee maker in a more mindful way. And that is a 5-minute a day commitment. It's small fry in a way, but it proves to me, because I do it day in, day out, becomes habit, that I can do that. So yeah, it's choose a commitment, stick to it, see how it feels. And that experience, I believe, helps us come back and commit and recommit to new things. Yeah,
exactly. Because it feels good. And then we're ritualizing commitment as well. I think a lot of the people nowadays in personal development industry, in coaching and training, even in leadership, they talk about ritualizing everything and being able to create a ritual, like you mentioned right now, making a coffee, committing to coffee to be the best possible beverage for you at that day. It's more like I'm not just pressing the button, but I'm within this ritual of commitment. And once when you ritualize everything, it has mindfulness attached to it. It has certain meaning. It's just not just a random action that you do because that's just something that you do, but it's much more meaningful to that, right?
That's exactly one of the authors I spoke to on the podcast. Their ritual would be, I will sit down at the same time every day with that blank sheet of paper, and I will generate 5,000 words. They might not be the 5,000 words I end up. In fact, they won't be the 5,000 words that go into the book, but it doesn't matter. It's the commitment to, this is when I do it. This is when I write. And, on that theme, you see a lot of very successful writers who do commit to, I'm going to literally churn out these words. Then I'll come back and edit it. But instead of sitting there, and this is the fear piece. It's a blank sheet of paper. I don't really feel like it. Or you know what it's like. We can make an excuse for anything. There's other things that need doing. And that is a fear talking to you. It's not that it's the wrong commitment. It's definitely a fear. So it's okay. I think ritualizing, building habit is an amazing way of getting past some of those fears that will be showing up for us. And we know some fears are good fears. Instinctive fears can save our lives, but these psychological fears can really get in the way of our potential. Yeah,
exactly. Holding us back and, giving us a story that justifies, or that is, I've been coached like that. When I was writing my book, I remember one of my coaches told me, the only thing you need to do is commit to writing. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm committed to writing. I said, no. He said, no, the only thing you need to do is sit down and just dedicate time, energy, and write every day or every week for a certain amount of time. And this is exactly what I've done to be able to write my book. I was committing, and sometimes I was struggling, sometimes nothing came through, sometimes I was just scribbling sometimes few words, and sometimes it was a flow. But that commitment then at the end resulted in the book. So I just vouched to that, what one of your guests shared, that it's so important to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, I ask one challenging question to everybody that they come to the podcast. It's a challenging question, and they just authentic challenging. What do you do in your coaching practice when you coach somebody and they keep on committing and they come to you and say, Richard, yes, I am committed. And you say, okay, you're committing. You say, yes, and I'm going to do it. Yes, I'm going to do it. And everything is wonderful. But then they keep on procrastinating. And every time you come into the coaching conversation, they haven't done it. And you coach them a little bit more, then they haven't done it again and again. What do you do? What do you do with that? What do you do as a coach? And what do you feel? Because I see this behavior sometimes in a lot of people, right?
Yes. Well, I was slightly laughing because that is very real world experience with us as coaches, because I think there's something of the human condition in that of saying I will, and for fears, whatever it is, getting in the way, and not getting there. I think the first thing as a coach, what I commit to is okay, this is their thing. They have chosen this. And if they're not completing it, it's not down to me, actually. So not that transference of, so I'm not starting, because I can see they're getting frustrated. If I start to get frustrated as well, we're just in a loop here that's not going to be massively beneficial. So the first thing I try and do is remember that. Okay, so it's their thing, not my thing. And then maybe there's some exploration around, yes, with the fears. Was it a suitable, important enough commitment they were making in the first place? It's a bit like the old GROW model. And do we need to go back to G because we didn't get the right goal? And that's fine. We can absolutely do that. Let's reassess how we got there. And then it could be, I try to get clients really present, very embodied in themselves, kind of out of the head, because it will be, fear, ego, it's all up here. If we can get into our bodies with this commitment, I think we've got a better chance. So I might do a little closed eyes exercise about just understanding what commitment can actually feel like. So, you can imagine you close your eyes, you think about a commitment that you have made in your life, as I said, going back into our body of experience. And how did that feel when you made that commitment? And they're like, I had real clarity, or I felt a sense of liberty, and life was simple, and my energy was up. Right, great. Now, let's close our eyes again and can imagine just sitting on a fence, literally sitting on a fence now and not making a commitment. Maybe using the one that they're trying to wrestle with right now. How does that feel? Uncomfortable is often the first thing, because they've pictured the fence. Then it gets into the depths of maybe there's some tension. I feel a bit confused. I feel insecure because I've not got confidence to do it. So doing that little exercise can then bring someone back into we agree this is the commitment that you really want to make. We've worked on some of the fears and we've looked at some of those outcomes of what commitment can actually feel like for you. Then maybe we go again. So that's as a technique, something that I might use in a session. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Just to help people overcome this barrier of committing, resistance to commitment. In addition to fear, I see that behavior conditioning that we all have, and that gets me into the little conversation that I really want to open, because I think it's significantly important about your men's work as well, and men and commitment. I see this not only in men but also in women, that nowadays somehow in our culture, the commitment to others, it's not really valued as it was before. At least that was my experience. I hope I'm not getting old, but sometimes people say, I'm committing, I'll come and see you, or I'll show up at this event, or I will send you this, or here is the resource, I'm going to do this, and I never do it. So somehow in our culture, this commitment, it's not valued the same thing as it was. And I think men are really, they carry that as a role models, to themselves, to other men, for example, in men's work also. And leaders in the organization as well, the role modeling, that integrity, that when you say something, you will do something, you will commit to something, you will see it through no matter what. And if you can, you will inform somebody else. I see this a little bit like disappearing. Do you have the same experience or?
Yes, I think I have some of that experience, and I lean on what obviously not in detail and breaking confidences, but what some clients talk to me about is I think there's a generational shift around this. The sense of I don't want to paste labels here, but maybe people of a younger generation who are, because of the world where they're growing up in, are overcommitting to various things. Right? I'm going to say yes to 10 things. Oh, and if I do 6 of those, that's great. And for me and maybe yourself, we might be going, no, I've committed to 10 things. So I'm going to do those 10 things because that was my word. That was my commitment. I said I would. So, and that's what, in other words, integrity, that's what that means to me because I said I would. And I think, not surprisingly, everything changes. And I think the depths and levels of integrity being linked to that sort of commitment has shifted to a degree as well. And I really do this out of not a place of judgment, but of an observation of what we're seeing for sure. And I with senior leaders I work with, there is definitely a frustration in perhaps more, I said more junior people in their businesses, and so they just don't have the same level of commitment like we did. And the thing is, again, this isn't right or wrong, because with the younger people, I do coach some younger people as well, they're going, I don't want to work like you did or my parents did. Because I didn't see my dad very much or my mum. They're always at work or talking about work or stressed about work. I want to make my choice. So I think part of that is whether it's a disconnect or a tension or a difference generationally. So I do some of that.
I love that we are looking into this, not from the point of judgment, just witnessing and seeing what's happening. And when you are within men's group, for example, is that integrity and that commitment a topic that is really current for everybody? And why do you think that's so important for men's health, so to say?
Yeah, that is definitely, integrity is such a, question a man's integrity, and you question an awful lot about them. I think that's one of the deepest held notions of the masculine, I think, is around integrity. And, a lot of men I work within the men's groups, they're real upholders of that integrity. And it can, this is the thing, which maybe the younger generation spot. Sometimes having that level of integrity holds you so tightly that there are some things that would be more healthy to let go of. Right. But as the masculine, it's harder because we've been, we've had that drummed into us since we were born, that this is the way you must be. So again, it's definitely not a right or wrong here. There's just a difference. But yeah, integrity has its huge positives, and if we hold on to things too tightly, I think can have us at our detriment. And I think about, the state of men's mental health right now. We just had World Suicide Prevention Day, it was just a few days ago from when we're talking, and the numbers are just so alarming, saddening, and so much more can be done on individual, community, organizational levels to support. And I think one of the things is maybe sometimes men not holding on so tightly to that I must be this person, or I will not have integrity. I don't think it's binary.
Yeah, it's a beautiful explanation. Thank you so much, because it really kind of unfolded my thinking around that, not to hold that so tightly, to exercise flexibility sometimes, to be able to let go, but yet be integral, because it's also part of what makes men men. So a few last questions for you, and then, then we're going to wrap up in the most beautiful way. So commitment in leadership, commitment in business. So for the leaders, for the organizational development people, for people from leadership and development, they're listening to this podcast. I know we have a lot of people who are always loving what we're talking about. How can we empower people in organizations to be able to show up with the true commitment to themselves as who they are within the organization, being project managers, leaders, employees, any position, and then to the organization in overall? And how can we create this more coherent ecosystem, which is much more integral, that actually supports that level of commitment and rewards on a certain level, recognizes that level of commitment. What would you say on that? I know this is a big question for the end, but just few of your thoughts would be really valuable here.
Yeah, again, I think we'll be covering some ground we've covered, but I would encourage people to that idea of commitment to yourself, as well as the internal, as well as the external. So this is how I commit to myself. This is how I can show up in the way I want to show up best when I go to my organization, to my business. And I think that just puts you in a better position for when the organization is, because organizations do make external commitments. This is what we're going to be. This is our vision. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think that allows you to just get with that tone, that energy in a better way. And you're less likely to be maybe fighting against it. And you go, let's go with it. If you agree with it, of course. If you don't, then you make your choice. But if you do, it's like, let's get behind this. And of course, going back to Lencioni's work, trust is absolutely the heart of that. So trust myself, trust the leader that's taking us on this journey, trust the organization. And when that's there, obviously we can start moving up, and we can have a healthy level of conflict. We can get into true commitment, all the way up to having amazing results. So that would be my encouragement for anybody in any organizational setting.
Beautiful. We'll touch a lot of points when it comes to commitment, and I'm so happy that you managed to address a lot of the things that are, creating that ability for all of us to create the best possible relationship with ourselves and our commitment. So how would you like to leave audience with? Would you like to call them for certain action? Do you have any exercise you will suggest? What do you feel people should do as a result of listening to our conversation today?
Oh gosh, great question. Well, take that time to tune in to yourself and what you're truly committing to. Maybe it's that exercise of, what does commitment feel like? What does it not feel like when I sit on the fence? And that's quite a simple closed eyes exercise you can actually do by yourself and just note it down. I would encourage you, well, of course, the Mojo podcast, series 6, we talked all about commitment. So if you're interested in some of those stories I mentioned, please go and check that out. It's on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. And last, I do have an invitation for the men listening. So I run a couple of men's groups, and one which is actually online on Zoom, and it is a men's commitment group. And we're starting a new group in October, and it's just a place that allows men to come in, to check in, tune in, slow down, get into what it is you're committing to, what are you not committing to, where those fears coming from. And in that group environment of that safe, confidential, held space, and men working with other men and when supporting other men is such an important thing, Zoran. I'm really, really passionate about it. So if that's something that resonates with people, they can get in touch with me, and I can send them some details for that group, which will be starting in October. So there's an invitation.
Commit to commitment. Commit to.
Well, this is it. It's commit to the commitment group. Exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was lovely to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. For everybody else, thank you so much for tuning into TNM Coaching Unplugged, the Zoran Todorovic Interconnected. We're so grateful and happy for your heart and mind and energy, for listening to us on your commute with your loved ones every day whenever you have time. See you soon. Thank you so much.